about we.
Okay, well, here we go. Today is June 26th, and this is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning and Zoning, and we are now in business. First order of business today would be citizens' comments. Do you have none in the public? I don't think we have any call-ins. So for anybody listening or watching online, this of course is an opportunity for citizens to bring forward concerns or questions to the Planning and Zoning Commission that are unrelated to any public hearings scheduled at that particular meeting. So don't hesitate. I'm sure that we just have a very vast audience watching online. Okay, so we'll just move on then. So we have our active agenda tonight, which is beginning approval of the June 12th, 2024 meeting minutes. Did everybody have an opportunity to take a scan on those? So I would be open to a motion to approve.
We'll make a motion to approve the June 12th minutes.
I will second that. Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, so those move forward. Okay, so tonight we have a public hearing about deliberation and recommendation to City Council on zoning code amendments, ZA 0224 shipping container, which is I guess we're gonna let's see, so the public hearing process is an opportunity, once we open the public hearing, staff will give a presentation. We will listen to testimony, if any, from the public. Then at that time, we will also, I guess we don't have anybody that would you do a Q and A's, and then we would close the public hearing for deliberation of commission, articulating the reasons why we would either move forward or decline to move forward the proposed recommendation. And yeah, so we're gonna go with that. So barring anything unexpected, I'm gonna go ahead and open tonight's public hearing, and we will have Joel move forward on it. All right, Joel, tell us all about it.
Not a whole heck of a lot to tell. Zoning chapter city code prohibits the use of shipping containers as storage buildings in the city, except in manufacturing zones and except for temporary conditions in other zones. There's been quite a proliferation of the use of shipping containers throughout the city over the years. So it's basically a big zoning violation. They're all over the place. And so we decided to revisit it, took it to city council. City council decided that they wanted to start the hearing process. So they directed staff to start the hearing process to remove the prohibition from the zoning code. And so that process starts with the Planning and Zoning Commission as a public hearing, and then we'll go to City Council as a public hearing. So I put in your packets a strikeout underlined version, basically striking all of the language that prohibits the shipping container use. So basically what that means is all this stuff comes out of the code, it goes away, and by default, then they would be allowed and treated as buildings. And so people will be able to get permits for them. And so that way we'll be able to regulate them. And so they're not in people's front yard setback and right on the property line and things like that. There's also a minor change to the definition of building that's proposed to make it clear that these units will be permissible, recognized in the zoning code as buildings and treated as such. So they'll be subject to the same setbacks, lot coverage requirements, height requirements, everything else. And that's what this hearing is about.
So will they be assessed as real property then?
No idea. We have nothing to do with that.
Oh, okay. I'm
It's the
just curious
county, I
about that.
think.
Madam Chair. So if I heard you correctly, Joel, they are prohibited in general over 90 days, it looks like.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people that are having them already, and that's what brought this to the forefront. Do we know why they were prohibited in the first place and when?
Yeah, I looked up the history on it, and it looks like they were prohibited predominantly because at the time, people didn't like the looks of them.
Okay,
So aesthetics.
okay.
Oh.
And so this would be, like you said, a reclassification into, so they would be buildings and then we could regulate them.
Correct. Yep, so at least that way we get them out of setbacks and we get permits on them and they're, you know, they're at least regulated in some way, whereas right now they're just all violations. They're not meeting setbacks and that kind of thing.
So I'm curious about if we have violations. Which apparently we do, which has started this. I mean, has there been any action to remediate that
No,
from, okay, how are we going to move forward?
complaint basis.
Complaint basis. So everything's grandfathered in now that's already in place?
No, grandfathered in implies legal. They're not legal, they're not grandfathered in, they're there illegally.
Mhm.
And they will be made legal on a complaint basis, so if the neighbor complains about one, code enforcement will go out. Tell them they need to get a permit, and in order to get a permit, they'll have to move it, maybe if they don't meet the setbacks or whatever,
Oh,
and, yeah, because, yeah.
and moving forward, if somebody decides to, you know, we have container sales, I mean, how are we gonna prevent them from moving without a permit?
We won't,
We won't, and
Just like
tell
we-
complaint based.
just like we don't know if people build a building without a permit.
Mhm.
Put in a shed from Costco. Yeah, so be treated just the same way as everything else.
I guess my concern is that if it's not really being enforced now, and it's just based solely off of complaints, but it sounds like we only received one. I mean, what is the city's plan to mitigate concerns that people have?
That's a policy decision for the city council. And they're the ones who initiated the start of this process, so they have not given me direction as far as what they want to do about that. I
Was
don't,
it based solely off of just one complaint, or was there more reasoning as to why this was brought forward?
I think it has to do with the fact that there are so many out there. Regardless of there not being a lot of complaints about them. And that is a sign then, so if you have a prohibition against something in city code and yet the community continues to do it anyway, that's a sign that there's a demand that the community has that they want that the city is not meeting. And I think that's one of the primary purposes of doing this is to at least give them an option to do it legally.
I see those people are doing it because it's not enforced. That they can do that without getting permits and without, you know, any sort of. So it's also that it's just allowed.
Same way as with a Ziggy shed or even a stick-built shed.
But there is the implied or implicit
Oh,
potential of punishment. And there's many precedents for
right.
something like this where it's in code or federal law, but like federal law enforcement officials or whoever will not specifically go after people until they receive a complaint about it. There's an aspect of self-regulation to having it in code versus not having it in code. Or at least that's how I kind of see it. This gives the potential for it to be in code versus just technically everybody's in violation right now.
After it. There's a complaint currently. There's no regulation on it. Nothing really happens.
Mhm.
If this were to happen, there's a complaint, then what's the follow-up
different?
now? Yes, what would be different now?
Like I said, well, it wouldn't be well, okay, so one thing, so code enforcement would still go out, they'd investigate it, verify the situation. If they find a violation, they'll inform the property owner that they need to correct the violation within a certain amount of time. And in this case now, instead of the property owner having to remove the unit from the property and find a place somewhere else for it to go outside the city or sell it to somebody in a manufacturing zone, industrial zone, they'll have the option to get the permit for it to keep it on their property.
And then if they do not go through with the permit, does the code enforcement come back out? Do they follow up with that, or is it
Yes.
just a notification? Okay.
Just like they do with weed complaints or anything else.
Okay, I wasn't
Yep.
sure on the full process, so.
Saying you can't have them, but we'd like you to have them this way.
Right.
As a citizen who has complained about code violations specific to parking within intersections. I mean, it's a statewide law, but it's also a real safety hazard. I have found as a citizen that it's a complaining to the code enforcement almost on an every other day basis to try to get some teeth into correction. My question would be, did the city, when the city asked you to begin this process, they were very specifically said, take it out of existing code?
Yes, that was the direction, was to start the hearing process to remove this language from the zoning code.
And then at a later date, we will move forward on, well, I guess it's part and parcel that we are now including the definition of the containers as is structures or home,
Yep.
buildings.
Yep.
buildings.
Yep.
So that's step 2 today. Okay.
Yep.
Any other thoughts or questions? Okay, thank you, Joel. Dawn, we have no one present. Did we have any call-ins or write-ins?
No.
No. Here's- Okay,
One other question, sorry.
Uh,
Would these be conditional use permits or different, just regular permits that would be done through
Correct.
city, not us?
Just a building permit,
Okay, perfect.
unless you wanted to use it for something that required a conditional use permit.
Gotcha.
well,
On residential property?
you can really make them snazzy if you've got,
Yeah.
you've got plumbing and sewer.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, last chance for questions of Joel? Anyone? Okay, well, I guess now, barring that, we're gonna go ahead and close the public hearing and deliberate on this topic. Consider the meeting closed. Okay, there is no public hearing. Okay, how do we deliberate? What's our thoughts, people?
So just keep in mind, this is a legislative hearing. There are no criteria. Yep. Yep.
I'm ready to move forward with the motion.
You've got 4 grandchildren at home.
Yeah.
I second Kathy's idea.
I mean, I see this as pretty straightforward, cut and dry. You know, we'd like to be able to the city would like to be able to regulate the use of these. Because like you said, there's an obvious need for it. So, I mean, I would have to say I'm for.
I agree. If there's a need and then there's a way that also you make some tax revenue on it or permit revenue, then
I'm a little unclear on this square footage of a container. I do understand we have the rights within code of a building that's 200, under the 200 without a permit.
It's like this size, so I looked that up. So it looks like the biggest ones are typically 40 by 8, so 320 square feet.
Okay, so it would exceed that, which would definitely qualify
But
as.
there are smaller ones.
Yeah. 30 footers, and I think there's even 20 footers.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if it generates an opportunity for revenue and control, then I guess we're gonna move forward. So I would be open to a motion to recommend. Okay, I just want to clarify before I move forward. We are articulating our reasons for Jennifer and the reasons that we would like to move forward is because it puts it in the hands of the city. Provides opportunity for better control. And provides a needed resource to citizens at a reason.
Just to clarify, there's no criteria or standards or statement or anything that needs to be formalized for a legislative recognition.
In other words, Jennifer does not need specific.
Jennifer doesn't
criteria.
care. Jennifer
In
doesn't
other words,
care
in
for-
other words, we don't need to defend our
Yeah.
decision in like.
Yeah, chairman.
courtroom.
I'd like to make a motion. I move that we recommend approval of ZA 0224 to the city council.
I will second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second to move forward with this recommendation to city council and turn it over to their hands. All in favor?
Aye.
And none opposed, therefore, this moves to city council. The recommendation does. All right. Well, we're done with that. So I guess now we're at staff communications.
City council conducted their public hearing on the comp plan on Monday. There was really no testimony of any consequence provided. So they just closed the hearing and now I'm bringing them a resolution to adopt it on July 8th.
I'm sorry, I meant to write an email, but.
It's okay.
I was alone at work and I was just.
No worries. It went smooth.
At least you heard of it.
Yeah. So that's the only real news I have for you. The only other thing is the query of your attendance for the July 10th meeting. We'll have another code amendment hearing. That's gonna be on the removal of the public works requirements that you initiated at your last meeting.
I should be here.
Anyone should be here.
I will not be here.
All right, Kevin is stepping out.
You're all heartbroken.
Kevin, we will have you in spirit.
I forgot how we function.
I said one or two meetings, so yeah, she might be.
We'll be cruising on the road, vacation,
That sounds fun.
Well, this is
Living-
big.
road trip.
Living the good life. Okay, well, I believe I will be present, so should be good there. And Commissioners, works, all right, it looks like we're open for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second.
And second.
Oh, you beat me to it.
All in favor?
Yes, aye.
I gotta get back home.
Adjourned.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
I laughed, but someone